There's that quote that you've been through 100% of the hard days. Like, you got through it. Just because you're not happy doesn't mean you're not okay. Like, you can chase high vibes and you can vibe high and be attracting the things that are meant for you in life, even though you're not happy. When people feel like they belong and they're important, they'll work harder for you. And I think as a leader, one of our main jobs and responsibilities is to remember that you can be a boss that's very different than being a leader. A leader is helping other people do it. If something is draining to you and doesn't bring you energy, you need to reassess the situation. If a friendship, for example, if every single time you're hanging out with a friend and you feel drained when you leave, there's something to assess there. You're giving too much. They're taking from you as opposed to contributing to your life as well. Those are the things that we kind of need to reassess. And it isn't being selfish.
Hi, I'm Yegi. I'm an entrepreneur and success coach who wants it all. Family, luxury, career, and the freedom to do whatever I want, whenever I want. And I'll do whatever it takes to get there. I created the Yegi Project to document my journey and inspire others to do the same. My mission is to change the world by influencing and leading others to do what they love and live fulfilled lives. Hello. Welcome back to the Yegi Project. Today's honored guest is Barbie Wharton, who is Real Talk and has her own podcast, Real Talk with Barbie. I am so excited to pick her brain because she has done so much and helped and touched so many people up to today. I'm excited to hear her story and see how she can help us, our audience, our listeners. So stay tuned. Let's get to know her and we can pick her brain and ask questions. Please, Barbie, introduce yourself. Who are you and what do you do?
Hey, thank you so much for having me on the podcast. We've been trying to coordinate this for a while, so I've been really excited to be on. Thank you so much for having me. Like you said, my name's Barbie. Yeah, and I have a podcast called Real Talk with Barbie, and I just am so passionate about making sure that we all come together and support each other in this crazy journey of life that we have. Everybody, we're going through all such similar things. And I think the best thing we can do is just support each other and lift each other up. So I'm excited to get started.
Yes, absolutely. Everybody tries to come off. Most of us try to come off as everything's fine. We're okay. That's usually what we say when somebody says, hey, how are you doing? We're like, oh, good, fine, okay. Yeah, fine, But there's so much we're all going through. And sometimes it doesn't even feel natural to talk about it unless somebody asks. So that's what you're a master at, with getting people to talk and actually naturally figure out and come down to the core of their, problems. But before we get into that, can you please tell us more about yourself? How did you get started in this work? Because you also coach people to help them get through things that they're going through, if it's a transition, if it's a hardship. But how did you get started in this work? What interested you to make it a career?
Well, I think a big part of it started in 2015 when I woke up with Bell's palsy. And for those of your listeners who don't know what that is, it's sudden onset facial paralysis. Typically on one side of the face. Very rarely people do get it on both sides, but it's one side of the face. And that was something very interesting to me. I woke up and people always ask me, oh, were you so shocked? And it's really interesting that I wasn't shocked. It was just one of those things where I really wanted to figure out why and what was, the reason. And when I really dug down deep, it's that I wasn't using my voice. I wasn't being heard. And of course my mom joked around at the time. She said, what do you mean you weren't using your voice? No one could ever shut you up. You're always talking, which is true. But there is a very big difference between, so it was about 10 years ago now.
Okay.
And, as we all know, there's a very big difference between using your voice and talking and feeling heard and speaking your truth. And I think those of us who are on this journey in life, we learn that. So that was a really big, kind of pivot in my life that hey, you know what, we need to speak up. And use our voice. Another big thing that happened for me was during COVID. The company that I ran dance competitions with my mom and my sister, and that was my life. It was my dream. I loved doing it, and we had to shut down the business. So at that point, I really was in this place in my life where I wasn't really sure what was next. And that is a big part, as we grow older, that we really need to speak up and seek help from people and say, hey, you know what? I'm feeling lost. I'm not fine. Like you said at the beginning of this episode, if we feel like we have to hold it all together and we have to look perfect on the outside all the time and we have to look professional and perfect, we can't keep up that all the time. You need to be truthful and reach out to people that love you and say, hey, you know what? I'm not fine. I need help. All those things. So
Yeah,
that's very important to me, that I
absolutely.
create a space that
Absolutely.
people can feel that way.
Even the most successful or put together or, I don't know, disciplined people have these winters, I like to call it. And literally, life is a season. So we all go through the good, the bad, and the ups and the downs. And we have to just know how to maneuver through it. I've learned that the hard way, that it's not a matter of what's happening in our lives or in my life. It's a matter of how I handle it, what I learn from it, the support I seek, the help that I get. And all of us can use help in any different areas. Nobody is perfect, and we're all going through things at a certain point of our lives. Something may seem great now, but it doesn't mean it's going to be great in a few years from now. So building these skills of knowing how to handle difficult things or times is also super important, in my opinion. But for you, to me, when I first hear your story, it's like, oh my God, I don't know what I would do. You make it sound you're so calm. I'm like, I would freak out if I woke up at night. So I was like, what? Why is this one part of my face not moving? And of course, I wouldn't know how it would feel because it didn't happen to me, and only you can experience that. But with no warning, no specific cause, all of a sudden your lives change. And I think that's such a hard thing to go through, and that is just different people go through different things. That's just literally a curveball, and we have to learn
for sure.
how to get through it. So can you break it down a little bit more for us? Because that's such a big challenge for you to have that, and then also shift a business or lose a business through COVID. I know a lot of us had to pivot and figure out how to, how to have purpose, or how to do our day to day, find something new that works in this current environment. So break it down a little bit for us. What was the biggest challenge, and how did you seek help, or what steps did you take in order to be where you are today now?
Well, I think the biggest thing now, looking back, of course, at the time, we were kind of just lost. You have no idea what to do. But the biggest thing that I've taken out of this is just to trust yourself. I like the analogy that you had just mentioned about a winter. And because, we are able to understand that winter happens, but we're very sure that spring is going to come. And having that faith is the number one thing. And so when it comes to personal growth and having to change and adapt, we really need to have that unwavering faith in ourselves that you've been through, there's that quote that you've been through 100% of the hard days. Like, you got through it. We don't need to be chasing happy all the time. I do a podcast episode on that. And just because you're not happy doesn't mean you're not okay. Like, you can chase high vibes and you can vibe high and be attracting the things that are meant for you in life, even though you're not happy. We're not running around like a lunatic all the time. Happy, happy, happy. That's exhausting.
Happiness can also feel peaceful, right? Happiness could be different for all sorts of people. Like, my happy, I may be super animated and I'm jumping off the walls. I'm like, ah! Then my husband's happy is like, he's super serious, but he's chill. I'm like, babe, I'm great. I'm so happy. So I think it's the way it's like, but you don't seem happy. But I think we all think that, okay, if we're chasing that happiness, we have to be at this crazy high energy level all the time. But I've learned that happiness is different for everybody, and it's definitely can mean it's just peace and it's calm. And it's okay to not be okay. I think that's where what you wanted to say, and correct me if I'm wrong. Like, it's okay if at this moment of my life I'm not ecstatic about how everything is. It is okay to not be okay, but just recognize it. And what can I do with that emotion? Once I accept it, I'm like, okay, right now I'm not at my best. And I don't love everything that's going on in my life. And I could relate to this right now. I have a lot of ups and downs too. And currently, like, I went through the motherhood era, and I'm still kind of in it, but I'm figuring out how to do both while, keeping my peace. But long story short, I've learned to be like, okay, I'm not at my best right now when it comes to my work, my career, because I am figuring out how to be the best mom, present mom as I could be for my kids, for example, right? And I'm okay with that.
Right.
But it's
And
okay for me to
yeah,
also
and I
be like,
think a lot of times, sorry, yeah, with clients, especially at the stage that you're in, that I really talk about, and this is real talk for you right here, is
yeah.
that you can have everything you want in life, you just can't have it all at the same time. And that was something that I really had trouble with when I was a young mom is, you know, I want the career. I want to be a great mom. I want to have the social life. And you can do all those things. Just sometimes we can't have it all at the same time. And once I realized that, that doesn't mean that you're a failure or that it's never going to come. Just like the spring that we were saying. You're working on your projects. And as long as you're taking baby steps in all those areas a little bit each day, doesn't mean you're failing it. So if we take you, for example, yeah, as a young mom, there's something pulling you in this direction. Okay, well, it's okay if you focus a little bit more attention in that area, because guess what? You can't get that back. You can't get that part back. The business and the podcast, you can work on it a little bit more later. And so that's a really important thing I think we need to remember, all humans in all areas is, just keep the whole thing moving forward a little bit at a time. That doesn't mean you can't have it all. Yeah.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And, for our audience who are not moms or parents or are going through a personal development chapter and era or working on their fitness or their health or, even their
Sure, yeah.
routines, all that stuff, I think all of that is equally as important too. And we forget, we think, okay, I just want to. That's why I love having this podcast as a personal and a business development, because we cannot grow our business and show up and be great entrepreneurs unless we do work on ourselves. Now,
Of course.
for you, as for your experience, how on your podcast, the guests that you interview, what are the 3 to 5 best takeaways you've learned from your guests that you can share with our audience?
Oh my gosh, the guests that I'm having are so amazing. And it's really important to me when I have guests that we like, exactly like you're saying, there's takeaways. Everybody's going through things that we can identify with, and that's really important. But I really want listeners to understand, like, we can do something. If you have something going on in your life, you can choose to make a change. That's up to you. One of the big things that I like to share and I learn with my guests is, hey, let's take care of ourselves before it becomes a problem. Let's take care before you wake up with facial paralysis. Your body is very smart, and we know when it's coming. You just don't want to listen. So if you stop for a second and just pay attention to the signs that your body is giving you, I think that that's one of the biggest takeaways for me. When I look back and I learned about Bell's palsy and, why metaphysically this was happening to me, of course, I could see it was coming, but you just don't pay attention. You don't pay attention because it's too hard.
So can you share a little bit more after you've kind of looked inside what was going on? What do you mind sharing? What caused it? Did you figure it out?
Yeah, from a health standpoint, it's caused by a virus. But
Okay.
from a metaphysical standpoint, so think of it like it's a similar virus, not the same, but similar to like cold sores and chicken pox. So most of us have this virus dormant in our body. So why is it that I wake up one day with Bell's palsy and you don't? So metaphysically, the reading and the research I do and talk to people about is that you're living your life, not using your voice. You're doing everything for everyone else, taking care of everything else and putting yourself second, not using your voice, not standing up for yourself. And everybody that I've talked to in my Bell's Palsy Talk community, there's the same pattern. We're all very different, but there's that same pattern, that underlying pattern. And that definitely was the case for me. I just, now looking back, it was just easier at the time to, keep the peace. Or
Of course.
put myself second or do all the things for all the other people. And I think that regardless of our situation in life, every single one of your listeners probably has been there, sometimes more than others in their lives. And we need to not do that. Our lives are our lives, and we can't take care of other people. We need to take care of ourselves first. And one of my guests last week, it was a great conversation. She said, you don't even need to have the goal of taking care of somebody else to put your own oxygen mask on first. We are allowed to take care of ourselves just because we're allowed to take care of ourselves. And that was a really big eye-opener for me, just to answer that question that you were asking. My guests have just these different ways of explaining maybe the same situation. I think that maybe is my biggest takeaway that I love with the guests is everybody can explain a certain situation in different ways. Maybe we just resonate with certain people more than others. And that's why I do love podcasting, and I love meeting people, in my job and talking with people, is because sometimes somebody just has a different way of explaining something that just hits it right.
And it hits.
And that's what I love. Yeah. With my real talk sessions is I have people that come in and you're like, you can tell they've gone to therapy, they've done the counseling. They're all very smart women, but sometimes you just need that real talk to be like, yeah, you're right. I didn't think about it that way. And that's the really cool part about coming together like this as a community.
It's awesome. Now, I know you've had experience in upper management, since this is also an entrepreneurial podcast. What was your experience like? What did you do, and how was it running a team or managing people? Because I know that's also a big part that our audience can learn from you and your experience.
When I was in upper management, I was about from age 22 to 25 or 26. I had finished school in business and worked my way up from marketing coordinator to sales manager to operations manager, and I loved it. I love working with people. I love leading teams. And after that, after I had kids, I then went on to run my own business with my mom and my sister. One of the things that I did love is the people. I'm a people person, and actually, quite frankly, in management, a big part of my role was what I do now. Just supporting other people on their journey, making sure that people feel supported. When people feel like they belong and they're important, they'll work harder for you. And I think as a leader, one of our main jobs and responsibilities is to remember that you can be a boss that's very different than being a leader. A leader is helping other people do it the way that they can, or figuring out ways where people can shine in their own light. That's the true magic of being a leader, is allowing other people to be better at things than you. You cannot be good at everything. I'm not good at spreadsheets. I'm not good at sitting still. So bringing people onto your team that are better than you at things and making sure that you're confident enough that that's okay. That's what you want. You want people on your team to be better than you at things. You want that. And that's the magic of figuring out how to be a good leader.
Awesome. Now, just to get to know you a little bit better for fun, what is one thing most people don't know about you?
One thing that most people don't know about me. Yikes. That is hard because I'm very open book. I'm trying to think about things about me. I don't know. These on the spot questions.
Hidden talents, weird interests, weird pet peeves, anything.
Yeah, I do love looking on Facebook Marketplace to see all the very weird things that people sell on there. Like when I was a kid, I loved garage sales. I mean, you're young. I don't even know if garage sales were a thing even after you were born.
Yeah, they were.
When I was a kid, oh my gosh, we got to go to garage sales like every weekend, and like, oh my gosh, you never knew the treasures you were going to find. So on Facebook Marketplace, it's kind of like an online garage sale. People sell their stuff, and it's always funny to see what people list on there.
I do scroll there sometimes. It's interesting. I find a lot of cool kid toys that are very expensive new, and people just want to get rid of these big items. So those are fun to look for over there.
Yeah.
How fun. All right. My next fun question for you is, if you had a magic wand and you can change anything, of course, we all want world peace. Besides that, what's the first thing that comes to mind?
Well, I think it's kind of along those same lines, but just the work of collaboration. I think that we can, if we can all focus more on, lifting each other up and supporting each other, like there really is enough for everybody. And I think even, if we take that into our, in our own individual lives every day, we get trapped so much in thinking in jealousy and things where we're like resentful of other people, instead of reminding, if she has that life and you're jealous of that, that doesn't affect you being able to get it either, so. That's
I
really kind of
absolutely
reframing it into that.
Yes, I absolutely agree. And I'm all for collaborating, helping each other grow. Obviously, this is the field I'm in and I've loved and thrived on it. When it gets to be tricky is when it comes to business. Since we do have a lot of entrepreneurs, I'm just curious what your honest opinion is on that. And I've had a hard time with that too. I am in the beauty industry and I've trained a lot of people on my skill and I give my all. I give 100%. I teach them all the secrets. And I've created a lot of competition for myself in that and like trackable competition, which I still love. It's a good challenge. And I've graduated to the next steps of things, but it is tricky. Even mentally, I've had problems with it. Oh, if I teach them everything I know, then I'm literally creating a business competition. And in business,
Sure.
and you want to be a good person, it's easy to want the best for somebody in their personal life, but then in business, it could be tricky. So what are your thoughts about that? How can businesses collaborate more instead of being worried about competition? Because I know it's doable. I've done it, but it is still tricky. So what are your thoughts on that? Where
Yeah,
do we
for
draw
sure.
that fine line?
Well, here's the thing. Everybody has something that's slightly different. Okay. So even if you, and I call it your secret sauce, if you train, you're at your salon and you train Jane and you teach her everything you know, she is different. No one can argue the fact that everybody has something that's slightly different that you bring to the table. And so you need to put everything you have into making that your goal. You get to be an expert at your craft, whatever it is, but the differential advantage that you bring to the table is what you put all your soul into, because nobody can take that away from you. So even if you have two salons right next door, two beauty salons, and yes, of course there's fierce competition, there is something that you can bring to the table and you do your best at being you. Nobody can take that away from you. So if you focus your soul on that, that's what to do. And people, when they walk into your business, do your first, conference call or sales call or anything, can sense that right away. The authenticity, whether they realize it or not, they can sense it. And that's what makes them want to do business with you. Last night we're at a conference for work. And one of the guys here was telling me he's into watches. Okay. So he loves spending money on watches. And we're talking high end watches. And I think they were in Miami or something. And he was going to buy a watch that day. He was going to spend a lot of money. He goes into two different shops and he was on the fence about which one he was going to buy. And the reason why he decided on one over the other was the experience that he had in that shop. So we can argue those watches essentially the same, right? Super high end, really good. A lot of, they're high value watches. Obviously,
Yeah.
they're both beautiful pieces. He made the decision because of the experience that he had in one shop over another. And that's the lesson to bring from here. I don't care if you're selling lipstick or if you're selling widgets, the experience that you bring to your clients, nobody can do it exactly the same as you. So instead of focusing on stealing clients from other people or how many clients they have versus how many clients you have, that put all your soul work into making your experience the best that you can, because nobody can do it exactly the same as you can.
Now, is this customer service experience or sales techniques, in your opinion? Do we, because, our listeners are working on themselves to be better people, better entrepreneurs. So I'm sure both matters, but in your opinion, for that specific guy's example, was it because the salesman was a great salesman or it's because of the great customer service? Do you know, or probably both?
Well, when you walk into, it depends. Right? Like if you're going to break it down from a textbook situation, a sales approach should be a customer experience approach. There isn't a difference, in my opinion, in selling versus customer service. Selling is customer service.
I love that.
You are that person's representative to the product. So if we're going to use that watch example, the customer experience was the sales. And I think that really in entrepreneurship, in any business, we need to move away from it being customer service versus sales. Sales is customer service. It is that experience. And if anybody listening is breaking that down into two different experiences, I would say that that's the mindset that needs to change real fast. because a
I
salesperson
love
should
that.
be that customer's advocate right from the beginning.
Beautiful. I think that's a great point to highlight from this podcast for our entrepreneurs. All right. Going back to getting to know you a little bit better, what does life look like to you today? Sorry, what does a peaceful, beautiful life look like to you today? Like an ideal life compared to what it might have looked like 10 years ago?
Well, peaceful and beautiful life to me is,
Is fulfilled. Sorry,
what
the
we're
key word is fulfilled
okay.
life.
Yes. Yeah, that's very important. And I do think that that is because every day can be different. Beautiful and peaceful can feel different one day to another. But, if you look at the accumulation and let's say the average of your days, if you're feeling fulfilled is important. Because what I mentioned at the beginning of the episode is, of course, every day isn't going to have perfect balance. Some days you're going to need to spend more energy with your kids. Some days, you need to make sure that you're taking care of your relationship. Some days you're, just grinding and getting all the work done. So what's important to me is that you look at the average of the days, every single day isn't going to be the same, right? So fulfilled to me is that, I'm working on projects that make me feel lit up and I'm using my voice and I'm really using my gifts instead of getting trapped in things that yes, we all have to do things we don't like to do. It's called being an adult. But if in general, you are able to focus on the things that bring you joy, and feel fulfilled, that gives you a fulfilled life. And also changing your mindset. I was talking to someone earlier today about that is just because every day isn't happy and magical doesn't mean that you're not fulfilled. We can change that mindset about it as well, and it not being all or nothing. Things aren't good or bad. There's lots of levels, in between that we can focus on and still be happy and grateful about throughout. So happy and fulfilled to me is just living my purpose, using my voice, getting out there, meeting new people, learning. Yeah, it's just so important.
Was that different from your mentality and perspective 10 years ago? Or have you pretty much had
Yeah,
that mentality
absolutely.
about happiness and
Yeah,
fulfillment?
no, I think 10 years ago, I was really a people pleaser. I was doing too much for other people. I thought that, if I was doing stuff for other people, that would make me feel important. That would make them want to be around me. And when we shift that mentality to really doing things that are important to you and light you up, that's how you attract people into your world that are meant to be there. And will also, you lift them up, they lift you up. But if we're too busy doing everything for everyone else, how are you going to figure out what actually is important to you? So, that's this next phase for me is doing the things that lift me up. And then that attracts people into your world that are meant to be there, who need to hear your message.
Beautiful. Now, for people pleasers, because I feel like generationally, a lot of us were conditioned to be people pleasers and we had to work on ourselves, or people are still working on themselves to have a balance, right? It's not paying attention to yourself and doing things right fulfills you doesn't necessarily mean you want to be selfish. You don't want to make sacrifices for other people. But for me, it's been a balance of still being there for people, still doing things I don't want to do. I know I have to do for certain people because I want to, tend to those relationships, but not letting it take away from my well-being or the things that are priority to me. Now, in your experience, as you've learned and you're working on this, what are 3 things people can be kind of aware of? And what are some tools they can use to put an end to it or reevaluate the decision before saying yes to something that may not be right for them?
Well, I think one of the main things is making sure, and in your mind, like a relationship should be fulfilling. So whether it's a friend, um, you know, or a partner or a work relationship, there should be a give and take. You should, for the big picture average, be getting out of it as well as giving. You should not always be the one giving, giving, giving. If something is draining to you and doesn't bring you energy, you need to reassess the situation. If a friendship, for example, everybody's not on all the time, but if every single time you're hanging out with a friend and you feel drained when you leave, there's something to assess there. You're giving too much. They're taking from you as opposed to contributing to your life as well. Those are the things that we kind of need to reassess. And it isn't being selfish by saying, you know what, like I can't spend as much time on this, friendship as much as I did before. It doesn't mean you need to cut the person off. It doesn't mean you need to break up with them or anything like that. It just means you need to focus on the things that bring you light more. And then that person will either come along or not, or the friendship will kind of fall by the wayside. And that's the part that's really important, to be really honest with yourself about. And I think the last thing I would say is not to feel, it depends. It depends on if you sit there and say, okay, I really don't want to be around that friend, but I'm worried about what they're going to do, or I'm worried about their reaction, or I'm worried about them more than yourself, then that's a red flag. And that's something to kind of really sit with yourself about. What is the motivation? Why am I feeling like I need to do all this for this person? What do I feel like? Do I feel like they're willing to do the same thing for me? And if that's a no, then that's something to just really reassess, that you're putting your time and energy into that person or career or anything like that.
Awesome. Thank you for that advice. And obviously that same thing goes to family members as well, even though it might be harder compared to a friend, but still for relationships. Because I know a lot of people struggle with. All right. Next question for you would be, if we were to follow you around, what would a typical day look like for you? Have you mastered a morning routine, a night routine? Where do you stand today, and what advice would you give to our listeners?
I would say that is like such a tricky question. I struggle a lot with that. I do well with routine. I'm not really good at making myself do it. I do enjoy working out in the morning when I can. I do travel quite a bit because I am a consultant, so I do kind of go where I need to go. I do like having projects that are different and challenging. So a routine's definitely something I do struggle with. And that is something that I would say I'm working on, is to make sure that even if your days are different, you kind of do the things that you have committed to yourself and not put it on the back burner. So for example, if you're like, okay, I don't know, you want to get a flatter stomach. Okay, let's do a workout that actually is realistic. Because I think a lot of times what we do is we'll go all in, and you're like, I'm going to buy the new runners and I'm going to get the new gym membership and do all this. Well, let's just really take a step back and say, like, is this something that's really realistic in my life? Can I actually do that? And my husband is very good with me about that. Like, is that really something that you think like you're actually going to be able to do? And I think a lot of times, we take on way too much because it's all these things that'd be fun and we want to do that. So my answer to your question is, if you were to follow me around, every single day is going to be different. But it's also something like I think that we need to not be so hard on ourselves about, because yes, the perfect thing is, you wake up at 5, you do the thing, have the green juice, and it's okay. Sometimes we can't do that. We're just trying to hold it all together. And I think maybe looking at it at, the end of every couple of weeks and say, what are all the things I did accomplish, as opposed to all the things that I wish I did that I couldn't. So that is something I definitely struggle with. A typical day for me is I'm up and, I check emails and drag teenagers out of bed and all those things. So right now, I wouldn't really be able to answer that question, because I'm just trying to juggle a lot of things and try to figure out, the next chapter in my journey. I know of the things that I'm meant to do, but I do want to fit it all in.
Yeah, you're still
So, like I
figuring
said
out
to you at the
what's
yeah,
going to
I'm
be
still
the
figuring it out.
best morning and night routine for you. And actually, to be quite honest,
Yeah.
I'm in the same spot, because I've been torn for this past since I was pregnant and started having kids. I've been torn in many directions, because I'm a person who likes to do like cajillion things, but I've learned to slow down. So I'm in the same spot. I don't have a perfect
Yeah.
routine. Times in my life, I have had great morning and night and day routines. I'm all over the place, and I'm okay with this.
Yeah.
I'm figuring out
Yeah.
what,
Give yourself
my,
some grace while you're going through the
yeah.
transition. I think that's the biggest advice,
Yeah.
that comes out of
And
that.
sometimes it takes time to kind of pay attention to, okay, what am I doing? Where's my time going? But how can I be intentional with that, right? So that's the phase I'm in. I'm like, okay, I admit I don't have a great morning routine or night routine right now, but okay, what am I trying to accomplish? How can I be more
Yeah.
intentional with those things? And I have a
Exactly.
rough
Yeah.
plan, so we just got to figure out how to get there. And I'm sure a lot of our
Yeah.
listeners would be that. But best advice that I would give is literally pay attention to where your time is going and what your intentions are, so you can make better plans, so then we can go ahead and get the better routine for ourselves to be more successful.
Sure. Yeah. That's good.
Before we close, can you share a little bit more about who is the ideal client for you for your one-on-one coaching, and what can they get out of hiring you?
The one-on-ones are really geared towards people. A lot of times people that come to me have already done a lot of counseling. They've done a lot of work. They've done all the workbooks. They've read the self-help books, and they're just kind of like, how do you connect that with your real life? And sometimes we just need to sit down and be like, hey, you know what? That's not going to work for you. How's that working for you
Yeah,
today?
it's not
And
realistic
the
for
real talk
where I'm
sessions
at.
really are, that's what it is we take all the pieces, we put them all together, we put it on the table, we look at, hey, what are you trying to accomplish? Is that too much for you? You know, like, come on. Sometimes it's just being like, oh, okay, we're not going to be able to do that, and that's okay. And a lot of the times we just need validation from somebody just looking in from the outside. It's not your mom, it's not your sister, it's not your partner, and you just say like, hey, you know what? I need somebody to just tell me it's okay. We're going to put that part on the back burner for a couple of years. Maybe that part isn't going to get done today, and that's okay. That doesn't mean it's never going to get done. It doesn't mean I'm letting myself down. It just means that I'm choosing to put my energy in this other area for right now. A lot of the times it's clients in transition like yourself. You're stepping into a new role. You don't know what that's going to be. There's no way to plan how to be a mother. I mean, it's bananas. Nobody signed up for this. My kids are
Honestly,
almost
I
20 and
love
18.
so sorry to cut you off, but I love learning, and I've read all the books, and none of it really applied until I got to
Of course
doing
it
it.
doesn't, because it's not you, it's not your baby, and it's not your life. And those are the things we try to prepare ourselves for, these roles that we're going to jump into. And nobody prepares. Like I was saying, my kids are almost 20 and 18, and I still don't have it figured out. So you know what the answer is? It's just to say, hey, you know what? I'm a smart person. I care for these humans, and I'm just going to do the best I can. And sometimes that's the best advice that I give people, is just give yourself a break. Stop listening to other people. You know what you need to do. And if today you feel like a failure, you know what? Maybe you did fail today. Maybe you weren't the best
So
mom,
what?
but tomorrow's the day, and
Try
you try
again
again.
tomorrow.
Exactly. And that's really sometimes what the sessions, a lot of times, is the biggest value that people get out of that, is just like, it's okay. You're not the only one. You're not alone. That is a big part of it, is we're all going through the same stuff. So, that's the biggest fun part for me, is really helping people understand that they're not
Yeah.
alone, and they can do it, and they're really are capable.
Yeah, and I think we're too hard. Sometimes we're too hard on ourselves because we think other people have it together, but nobody's perfect.
I don't think sometimes. I think that I can confidently say all the time, we're way too hard
Yeah.
on ourselves, way too much comparing ourselves to other people. And you know what? If that's the one thing that everybody can drop today, that's what it is because it's not. My life is not the same as your life. Nobody's exactly the same.
Yeah, and we all have our own journeys. Now, my last question to you is, what is your last words of wisdom, and where can people find you if they want to connect?
So you can find me at Real Talk Barbie on Instagram or barbiewharton.com, and I'm happy to connect with anybody there. I just love bringing people together, being a connector of ideas and things like that. And like we discussed a couple times throughout the episode, just doing our best, asking for help. You don't need to be all the things to all the people all the time. All the goals can be achieved, maybe just not all at once. So the last thing I want to leave it with is, nobody can be you like you can. And your dreams matter, your voice matters. And whether you're going through anything, a transition in life, stepping into motherhood, divorce, any of those things, you matter just as much as everyone else does. So make sure you remember that. And if you forget that one day, please reach out. I can remind you. And that's really what we want to bring to this world, is really lifting each other up. Everybody's important.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Barbie, for your time, your advice, your wisdom, and everything that you shared with our audience. And thank you for our listeners for tuning in. And until next time, bye. Thank you for listening. Please rate and review this podcast. Follow and engage with us on social media under the Yegi Project. And if you're interested in being a guest, email info@theyegiproject.com. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on any future episodes.